The Pine Acres VMP helped stop both the 2015 Butte Fire and the 2022 Electra Fire. As the Electra Fire smoke dissipates, CAL FIRE Amador Eldorado Unit is evaluating the success of the Pine Acres Vegetation Management Program, also known as a VMP.
I'm the battalion chief in Battalion 3, and I'm specifically stationed in Pine Grove, and I was the captain there for 16 years. So the VMPs to me this is a piece of land in a community that I'm trying to protect, and these VMPs are huge for stopping fires for the whole community. You see this line right here? That's our fuel break. Okay. That drops down all the way to the McQualmie, and both fires, it caught both fires.
The Pine Acres VMP is 20 years in the making. Over the years, CAL FIRE Amador Eldorado Unit has partnered with many cooperators, including PG&E and the Amador County Fire Safe Council, to keep this project going. CAL FIRE Amador Eldorado Unit is currently working with 31 private landowners to continuously clear 2,554.5 acres in the McQualmie River drainage. This VMP accomplishes two primary goals. It removes vegetation in the McQualmie River drainage, which helps slow a fire spread, and it gives firefighters critical access, establishing areas in which to stage resources. A fuel break is an area of modified or cleared vegetation, giving firefighters a clearing in which to take a stand against wildfire.
Currently where we're standing on the Pine Acres VMP is pretty close to the middle of the VMP project. We're on the ridge line above the McQualmie, and so our fuel reduction project runs along the whole entire ridge. And you can see there's minimal vegetation in here, so when the fire comes up out of the canyon, it slows down a little bit, and we're able to make an attack on it. All of this vegetation that you're seeing where it's just completely gone and you're seeing a bunch of new growth, that's the Butte Fire scar.
In 2015, the devastating Butte Fire took 2 lives and destroyed hundreds of homes. Historically, there has been a fire in the Electra drainage roughly every 3 to 5 years. Most of those fires started near the Electra powerhouse and primarily burned grass. The Butte Fire was an anomaly when during a north wind event, that fire went in a different direction, entering Calaveras County. Communities south of the McQualmie River were impacted, including Glencoe, Railroad Flat, McQualmie Hill, San Andreas, and Sheep Ranch.
In 2015, I will honestly say if this fuel break was not here, the houses you see behind us here would not be here right now. We would not have stopped the fire here without this buffer we have now between the brush line and the houses. The brush would have been to the houses, the flaming front would have hit the houses, and we'd have had no place to anchor and fight fire from up here.
Now with the Electra Fire.
Every single person that's evacuated is going home to a house with no damage to it. We didn't lose any houses on this one. Unfortunately, in the 2015 Butte Fire, we couldn't say the same thing.
Pine Acres is a small community on the Amador County side of the McQualmie drainage. On both the Electra and Butte Fire, flames came right up to the top of the ridge very close to these homes. The Pine Acres VMP did exactly what it was supposed to do: protect these homes, a plan that was hatched 2 decades ago.
Sometime around 2002, this site was chosen because of the close proximity to Pine Acres, and what was identified is to do a fuel break primarily west and south of the Pine Acres community. It's a 300-foot swath in order to protect this community in the event that we had a large hostile wildfire. And it's making a difference on large-scale fires like the Electra Fire, and this is definitely one of those success stories.
When creating a VMP, we use existing fire breaks and build a box in which to corral a fire.
On VMPs, we try to hit our ridges, and if you look over on the Calaveras, you can see a pretty predominant ridge line. That's a really good place where you can see the dozer lines what they put in, and that's where we try to come to the top and stop a fire.
Rivers are existing, ridges are existing, roads are existing, or something that's void of vegetation, lakes, parking lots, things like that, rock faces. Those are all things that you can consider that you can tie into when you're doing vegetation management.
Us being able to come in here, clear these ridge lines, helicopters can get in here and get water all the way down to the ground, to the seat of the fire. Not having a continuous fuel model where everything's all just mashed together where firefighters can't get through. VMPs are extremely important to us, and it plays into the success of stopping fires, specifically the Butte and the Electra Fire. Right here is Box Beach. This is the origin of the fire. Okay. Right, and this is Lake Taboo. There's the dam. And then right here is the river's edge, and you can see our fuel reduction project if you look at the edge of the canyon. This is Lake Taboo. And right here is at the dam. So this area has been treated. This area has been treated. Right here. Right here.
Here at the Lake Taboo Dam, the difference between areas that have been treated and untreated is stark. On the treated hillside, areas around the trees are clear, and you can see the grass. On the untreated hillside, the brush is thick and tall, and the grass is hidden. So what would happen if a fire started at the base of the untreated hill?
It's gonna run to the top of the hill. If a fire starts down there, it's gonna run up to the top of the hill and it's gonna run hot. And it's gonna be really hard for firefighters to get in there and fight it.
Fire, like water, will take the path of least resistance. Except as water flows downhill, fire will easily run uphill, right where many people like to live. That's what makes a VMP so important.
So if you've got a fire running up one of these chimneys or chutes, all of that heat and fire is all shooting right into that area, kind of like a chimney, and it's heading right towards your house. Perfect example is right there on Ponderosa Way. Do you see where the fire shot straight up the middle of that drainage? And then on the left and the right is green. So the fire came from the bottom, took the least route of resistance, and ran right up that drainage.
I grew up in Pine Grove, just probably 2 or 3 miles from where we're standing right now. And then I currently live in Jackson, which is probably 6 or 7 miles right behind us here.
CAL FIRE Amador El Dorado Unit Chief Mike Blankenheim has deep roots in this community. His brother Charlie is a Deputy Chief of Operations in the neighboring CAL FIRE Tuolumne Calaveras Unit. Chief Blankenheim reflects on the Butte Fire, how much it impacted him personally, and how he vowed to absorb the Butte Fire's harsh lessons.
But this was the first one that we were really a part of where it started and we could not fight it. It straight up outpaced our tactics, outpaced our strategies, all those kind of things. That was the first time I've experienced that in my career. It felt like losing. I'll be quite honest. With the fire behavior and the fuel conditions and those kind of things, we were not prepared for what that dealt to us, and we've learned from that.
On July 4, 2022, when Chief Blankenheim heard a new fire was starting near the Electra powerhouse that showed many of the telltale signs of the Butte Fire, he felt immediate dread.
A little bit of that sinking feeling, a little bit of apprehension that we did not want the Butte Fire again. So there was a deja vu moment for several hours when this thing was really starting to ramp up. It had crossed the river, and there was one point in time where there was a couple of us that were here on the Butte Fire. We were also here that night, and you know, the same 3 or 4 of us were literally standing in the same driveway, coming up with the same plan on the same map we were using in 2015.
Fortunately, no lives or homes were lost in the electric fire, and the Pine Acres VMP did exactly what it was supposed to do.
We knew that this was here. We had planned for this event for multiple years prior to getting here, and we sent resources up here to do suppression action early on in both incidents, knowing that this was going to be a foothold.
But it's important to note, a VMP is not a one-time fix. VMPs must be maintained. Vegetation grows back, like it did over this control line that was created during the Butte Fire. This area is not a part of the Pine Acres VMP, and the vegetation has been allowed to regrow.
This line was used as a 9-mile contingency line in the event the Butte Fire continued to progress to the east. You have to recognize that all these fuel breaks do take maintenance one way or another, and if you don't reduce those fuels, it'll grow back to what it naturally would do on its own without disturbance.
Fuel break maintenance needs to become a common statewide practice. When people get grant funding, they need to start looking at ways to continue working on fuel breaks for future generations. It's much more expensive and labor-intensive to have to retreat a fuel break or VMP that was allowed to become overgrown than it would have been to keep it maintained. Whether it's mastication, mechanical, herbicide, or prescribed fire, these fuel breaks need to remain cleared so firefighters can use them when fighting future fires.
Fuel breaks work. Take them seriously, plan them, maintain them. We learned a lot of lessons in 2015. Things went really well, and we repeated those things because we had success with them. And we did a lot of things that did not go well in 2015, and we avoided those.
Everything that we're doing is what we should be doing. Pre-fire engineering is one of the most important things that CAL FIRE does, and it needs to become something that landowners do also, and cooperators do statewide, in order to make sure that we can mitigate the threat to these homes and infrastructure statewide.